Grace didn't feel like herself anymore. It started with a strange itch. Then came the smell, strong, rotten, followed by sharp pain in her lower stomach. She rushed to the clinic. The nurse gave her antibiotics, but nothing changed. 2 weeks later, something worse happened. Her pants were always wet, not with urine, but with a thick blackish fluid. Then one day, she went to the bathroom and screamed. Maggots crawling, alive, coming out from between her legs. This is the story of Grace. Stay tuned. The sun was hot that day. Grace sat at the back of the lecture hall, fanning herself with her exercise book. She hadn't eaten since morning. Her eyes were dull from hunger. Her thoughts were far from the class. She was thinking of her mother again. Mama had been coughing blood for weeks. The hospital bill was 70,000 naira, but Grace had only 2,300 naira in her account. After class, she walked back to the hostel room, dragging her feet like they carried stones. When she got to her door, her roommate Sandra was sitting on the bed, painting her nails, her phone pressed to her ear. Sandra was always full of life, wearing expensive wigs, perfumes, and changing phones like socks. "Hey girl," she smiled, ending her call. "You look like you want to faint. You never chop." Grace shook her head weakly. "No money." Sandra dropped her nail polish and stood. "Look, Grace, you can't continue like this. Your mama is sick. You dey suffer, yet you still dey form good girl. Let me help you." Grace frowned. "Help me how?" Sandra grinned. "I get one man, very clean, very rich, and very generous. He no dey ask for nonsense. He just likes clean, respectful girls. One night with him, and your mama go fit, do surgery, and even buy drugs for 1 year." Grace's heart jumped. She had never done such a thing before. But the image of her mother, coughing and weak in the hospital, was too strong. That night, after crying alone in the bathroom, she walked out and told Sandra, "I'll do it, just once." That night, a black jeep arrived outside their hostel around 10:30 in the evening. Sandra handed her a simple black gown and red lipstick. Grace's hands were shaking as she put it on in front of the mirror. She looked at herself and whispered, "Just one night. For Mama, just one night." The man inside the jeep was dark-skinned, clean-shaven, and wore a gold wristwatch that sparkled even in the night. He smiled when he saw her. "You're more beautiful than she said." He spoke with a deep voice. Grace just nodded, too scared to speak. They drove to a quiet hotel outside town. He booked a luxury room on the top floor. He opened the door, handed her a glass of juice, and said, "Just relax. I don't bite." Grace didn't drink the juice, but everything else that night she didn't remember clearly. The next morning, Grace woke up alone in the room. The man was gone. On the table, he left an envelope with 500,000 naira. A small note was inside. "Take care of your mother. I'll reach out again if needed. M." She held the money and burst into tears. That same day, she paid the hospital bills. Her mother's treatment started. The cough began to reduce, and for the first time in a long while, Grace smiled. But what she didn't know was that night was not free. Her womb had been sold. 1 month later, Grace started feeling strange. Itching. Smell. Pain in her lower stomach. She went to the clinic. The nurse gave her antibiotics, but nothing changed. 2 weeks later, she noticed something horrible. Her pants were always wet, not from urine, but from a thick blackish fluid. Then one day she went to the bathroom and screamed, "Maggots!" Yes, maggots, moving, alive, crawling from between her legs. She fell to the floor. Grace woke up in a hospital bed. The bright white light above her face made her eyes blink fast. Her roommate Sandra was standing beside her, looking shocked. "Grace! Grace!" she called, shaking her gently. Grace slowly turned her head. "I saw them crawling," she whispered, her voice weak. "There were maggots inside me." The nurse nearby looked confused. "Maggots? What do you mean?" But Sandra didn't look surprised. She just turned away and bit her lip, like someone hiding a secret. The doctors ran test after test. STD test negative. Ultrasound clear. Urine test normal. Pregnancy test negative. The result said she was fine, but she knew she was not. That night, while everyone was asleep, she went to the bathroom again. As she sat on the toilet, a sharp pain shot through her womb like a knife. She looked down and screamed. Maggots were crawling again, slimy, white and alive. She used a bucket of water to wash them away, trembling in fear. When she looked in the mirror, she didn't know herself. Dark circles had formed under her eyes. Her lips were dry. She looked like someone who had been cursed. She called Sandra. "Sandra," she cried, "you told me the man was clean. You said it was safe." Sandra didn't meet her eyes. Instead, she whispered something that made Grace's heart freeze. "I didn't know he still does that." Grace stared at her. "Still does what?" Sandra looked around and moved closer. Some girls who slept with him before, they went mad. Others bled till they died. "You're not the first. I thought he changed. He paid me extra to bring you that night. I swear, I didn't know he still—" Grace slapped her hard across the face. "You sold me out for money." Tears rolled down Sandra's face. "I'm sorry." But it was too late. The damage had already been done. Desperate and afraid, Grace followed her mother's advice and went to see a powerful prophetess in a nearby village. She wore a white wrapper, sat barefoot on a mat, and her eyes were covered with white chalk. Before Grace could speak, the woman said, "You carried a demon that night. Your womb has been sold." Grace's knees went weak. "I didn't know," she whispered, crying. The woman shook her head. "The man you slept with, he's part of a powerful cult. They exchange women's wombs for riches and political power. It's not ordinary. That night, they collected your seed. What you saw, those maggots, are not physical. It's a sign from the spirit world." Grace held her chest. "So what can I do?" she asked, shaking. "Please, I want my womb back. I want to be free." The woman looked deep into her eyes. "There is only one way. You must face him directly, but before then, you must pass through cleansing. 3 nights in the sacred stream. If your spirit is strong, you will survive. If it's weak, you may never return." Grace wiped her tears, stood up slowly, and nodded. "I will go." The journey to the stream had begun, but something else was watching her already in the dark shadows of the night. It was 4 in the morning. The village was still dark and quiet, except for the sounds of frogs and distant crickets. Grace was barefoot, wearing a plain white wrapper, walking through the forest path with the prophetess and one other woman, Mama Kemi, the prophetess's helper. They carried a small calabash, a bottle of palm oil, white chalk, a broom made of palm fronds, and an egg. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Grace held her chest. Her heart was pounding. She had never entered a forest at night before. And now she was heading to a sacred river, Oshumiriani, the river that talks. The prophetess said, "This river sees everything. It knows what happened to you. It knows what was taken. But it can also fight back if your hands are clean." When they reached the riverbank, the prophetess knelt and whispered old words into the air. Suddenly, the wind blew harder. The trees shook. The water in the river began to move on its own. Grace shivered. The prophetess turned to her. "Remove your wrapper. Step into the river. Let it touch your womb." Grace removed the wrapper and stepped into the cold water. It was freezing. Her teeth began to chatter. Her legs felt numb. Then the prophetess threw the egg into the water and said loudly, "If her womb was sold, let the river show it." The egg floated for a moment, then cracked open on its own. Inside the egg was black liquid. The prophetess gasped. "It is confirmed," she whispered. Her womb was spiritually buried. Then she dipped the broom in the river and began sweeping the water around Grace. As she chanted, Grace suddenly screamed. A strong burning feeling shot through her stomach. She doubled over in pain, crying, but the prophetess didn't stop. "The spirit is angry," she said, "but we must continue." Just as they were about to end the ritual, a strange voice echoed from the water. "She must return the price or remain cursed." The women froze. Grace was shaking all over. "What does that mean?" she asked. The prophetess looked scared. "It means the man who sold your womb must return the money he gained, or the curse stays, no matter what we do." Grace dropped to her knees in the water, crying, "But I don't even know his real name. I don't know how to find him." The prophetess stared at her. "Then you must go back to the one who took you to him, your roommate." The next day, weak and still in pain, Grace returned to school. Sandra was shocked to see her. "Grace, you left just like that. I've been looking for you." Grace didn't answer. She walked straight into the room and locked the door. That evening, she finally sat with Sandra and said, "I need his name, his full name, now." Sandra's face changed. Fear came into her eyes. "I told you, he doesn't like people talking about him." Grace grabbed her shirt. "I said, give me his name or I swear, if I die, I'll come back and drag you into the grave with me." Shaking, Sandra slowly wrote a name on a piece of paper. Chief Anthony Okonkwo. Grace looked at the name, burning it into her brain. Now she had a name. The same name the river wanted. The same man who must return the price, or she would never be free. Grace couldn't sleep that night. She lay on her hostel bed, staring at the ceiling fan as the name Chief Anthony Okonkwo echoed in her head over and over again. A name that sounded like power and destruction, the man who had taken everything from her and disappeared like smoke. She picked up her phone, searched the name online, but nothing came up. No Facebook, no Instagram, no company, no business records. It was like the man didn't exist, but he did. She felt it in her womb. The next morning, she stormed into Sandra's room, eyes red with anger and frustration. Where does he live? Where does he work? Give me something. Sandra looked scared. "Grace, please. I don't want to die. I'm begging you. That man is not ordinary. He warned me never to share his location. The last girl who tried to track him, she went mad." Grace didn't care. "My womb is gone," she shouted. "He already took everything from me. What else do I have to lose?" Sandra hesitated, then finally said in a whisper, "He has a private lodge in town near Hilltop Estate. But security is tight. No one enters without invitation." Later that day, Grace borrowed a friend's oversized hoodie and glasses, packed a small bag, and took a bike to Hilltop Estate. It was quiet and luxurious. Big houses, tall gates, no children playing around. Everything looked too polished, too secretive. She asked around. Most people just stared or ignored her. But a fruit seller finally whispered, "If it's the big house with the black Jeep, that's Okafor's place. But nobody calls him Anthony around here." "Okafor," Grace repeated. "Yes, people say he helped build this estate. Others say he owns it. But strange things happen inside there. Some girls enter and never come out again." Grace felt chills down her spine. She tried to enter. She walked to the tall black gate with gold patterns. 2 huge security men stood there. "Good afternoon," she said, her voice shaking. "I want to see Chief Anthony, Okafor." One of the guards laughed. "You get appointment?" She shook her head, then turned back. The other one said sharply, "This is not a church. You don't walk in without invitation." "But I need to see him, please." "Tell him it's Grace. He knows me." The guards burst into laughter. "Go back, small girl, before we help you disappear." They pushed her away and slammed the gate shut. She stood there for minutes, heartbroken. Tears filled her eyes, not because she failed, but because the war had just started. That night at the hostel, Grace returned quietly, not saying a word to anyone. Around midnight, she woke up screaming. She had a nightmare. In the dream, she was inside a coffin. But the coffin was filled with maggots, and standing over it was Chief Anthony, wearing red beads and smiling wickedly. He leaned close and whispered, "I didn't just take your womb. I bought your destiny." She woke up sweating. Her roommate ran to her. "Grace, what is it?" She grabbed her Bible and began to cry. "I need to go back to the prophetess. I need to go back. This is no longer a sickness. This is war." Meanwhile, far away in a dark compound surrounded by high fences, Chief Anthony sat in a red chair, a glass of palm wine in his hand. Behind him were burning candles and an old shrine. He picked up a goat horn and poured some wine into it. Then he spoke into the darkness. "She's awake. She wants to fight. Let her try. But by the time she finds me again, there'll be nothing left of her." He sipped his drink and smiled. The battle had just begun. By 6 in the morning, Grace was already on her way back to the prophetess's compound. She didn't eat. She didn't speak to anyone. Her body felt weak, but her spirit was burning with one desire: to reclaim what was stolen. The journey took over 2 hours, but she didn't care. When she arrived, the compound felt different, quieter, darker, colder. The prophetess was sitting outside already, like she had been expecting her. She didn't smile. She didn't greet. She just looked into Grace's eyes and said, "He knows you're searching. That's why he's sending shadows to block your way." Grace nodded, tears gathering. "I saw him in my dream, smiling inside a coffin of maggots. He said he bought my destiny." The prophetess stood. "It's time we open the truth." That evening, as the sky turned orange, the prophetess prepared a sacred mirror made of goatskin, powdered charcoal, and cow blood. She drew strange signs on the ground and lit 7 red candles in a circle. Then she placed the mirror in the middle and told Grace to sit. "Do not blink," she warned. "Whatever you see, do not speak until the mirror goes dark." Grace nodded and stared into the strange object. At first, nothing. Then slowly, images began to appear. She saw a river. Then a girl, naked and shaking, being led by 2 women into the river. That girl was her. Then the image changed. She saw the night she was in the hotel room. The man gave her juice. She refused. But something was blown into her face. White powder. She passed out. Then another image. A small shrine. A man in red beads and black wrapper stood over a clay pot filled with blood. Chief Anthony. He dipped his fingers in the pot, pulled out a tiny image of a womb made from wax, and whispered, "This is my offering. Give me political power. Take her ability to carry children." He buried the wax womb into the soil. Then the mirror flashed again. This time she saw herself. Older, married but barren, crying as doctors told her she had no womb. Then a voice echoed inside the mirror. "Unless he returns what he took, your future will be full of tears." Suddenly the mirror went dark. Grace fell backward, screaming. The prophetess rushed to her and held her as she cried. "I saw everything," Grace sobbed. "He buried something. He gave my womb to the gods." The prophetess nodded. "Yes, and he paid them with your destiny. That's why nothing has worked for you." Grace looked up, voice shaking. "Can I still get it back?" The prophetess paused, then said slowly, "Yes, but only if he unburies it. With his own hands, or if his blood touches the earth where your womb was buried." Grace's eyes widened. "His blood?" The prophetess nodded. "Either he willingly returns what he stole, or he must bleed on the same ground." Grace stood up slowly, then whispered, "Then I must make him bleed." Later that night, Chief Anthony was driving home in his black Jeep, smiling after a political meeting. As he stepped into his compound, he stopped. On his gate was a red cloth, tied in a strange knot. He walked closer. Written on it with charcoal were 4 words, "I want my womb." He stared at it, then looked around. There was no one in sight, but he could feel it. War had started. Watch out for part 2. The real battle is just beginning. This is not just a story of revenge. It's a fight between darkness and a girl who refused to stay broken. Turn on your notifications. Part 2 will shake you. Don't miss the drama as it unfolds. And remember to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Eager to find out what happens next in this story? Comment continue below. It was quiet in the prophetess's hut. Too quiet. Only the sound of burning candles crackled gently in the darkness. Grace sat in the middle of the room, shivering under a thin white cloth, her face tired, but her eyes sharp with focus. The prophetess entered slowly, holding something in both hands. A small, old-looking calabash tied with palm fronds and red beads. It was shaking gently, even though the air was still. "This is not an ordinary calabash," she said. "Inside it is the voice of the gods, trapped for many years. It only speaks when blood calls it." Grace looked confused. "Blood?" The prophetess nodded. "You must place a drop of your blood inside. Then ask one question, just one, and it will answer. But what if I ask the wrong thing?" The prophetess leaned close. "Then the spirits will confuse you forever." With a small razor, the prophetess gently cut Grace's thumb. A single drop of blood fell into the calabash. The room shook. The candles went out. The air turned cold. Then a strange wind blew through the window and slammed the door shut. The calabash began to glow with a reddish mist. Grace closed her eyes, trembling. Then she asked in a weak voice, "Where is my womb?" The calabash shook violently, and then a voice, deep and crackling, spoke. "Buried in darkness, bound by blood, beneath the red tree where no shadow stands." The calabash went still. The light vanished. Grace opened her eyes, panting. "The red tree," she whispered. The prophetess slowly sat beside her. "That's a real place," she said. "A cursed tree at the back of Isiyama Forest. No birds perch there, no leaves fall. They say it drinks the blood of the innocent." Grace's voice cracked. "Then that's where I must go." Meanwhile, in his mansion, Chief Anthony was not sleeping. He paced around, angry and restless. The red cloth on his gate still danced in his head. He called a number. "Hello," a deep voice answered. "It's time," Anthony growled. "She's coming too close." "What do you want us to do?" Anthony's eyes narrowed. "Bury her, just like we buried her womb." He ended the call. Outside, two strange men dressed in black entered a black SUV and started the engine. Their mission was clear: end Grace before she reached the tree. 2 days later, Grace and Mama Kemi wore brown wrappers and started the journey to Isiyama Forest. They couldn't take a car, no phones, no metal objects. The prophetess had warned, only pure hands can enter. As they walked deeper into the forest, the path became dry and dead. The trees looked like they were whispering. Even the birds were silent. Then suddenly they saw it. The red tree, huge, tall, leafless. Its bark looked like cracked skin, and the soil around it was dark red, like dried blood. Grace's stomach turned. She took one step closer, but a loud gunshot echoed behind her. "Bang!" Mama Kemi screamed. 2 men in black had arrived, sent by Chief Anthony. One of them shouted, "Step away from the tree." Grace didn't move. She was tired of running. She turned slowly and looked them straight in the eyes. "You want to kill me? Then shoot. But just know if I die here, this tree will never sleep again." The second man hesitated. "Why did he send us here?" he whispered to the other. "This doesn't feel right." But the first man raised his gun again. Suddenly, boom! Lightning struck the tree without warning. Both men screamed and ran. Grace fell to her knees, shaking. She had just been saved, not by strength, but by the tree itself. The rain poured suddenly, without warning. The sky turned dark, as if the heavens themselves wanted to hide what was about to happen. Grace sat on the wet ground before the red tree, shaking and soaked. But she didn't move. Mama Kemi ran back toward her, panting. "Are you all right?" "That lightning?" "I'm fine," Grace whispered, staring at the foot of the tree. "The spirits, they are with me." Then she stood up slowly, took the wooden stick Mama Kemi had carried, and began to dig. Each scoop of earth released a strange smell, like something rotten and old. The mud was thick, red, sticky. It clung to her fingers, like it didn't want her to dig deeper. Suddenly, her hand touched something, hard, cold. She screamed and fell backward. Mama Kemi rushed over and helped her clear the soil. It was a small clay pot, tightly sealed with black wax, covered in cowries and blood-stained threads. Carved on it were strange symbols, and one word, Grace, her name. It was real. Her womb was truly buried. "Be careful," Mama Kemi warned. "Don't open it yet. Let's carry it back to the prophetess. She'll know what to do." But as she bent to pick it, something strange happened. The ground around the pot began to tremble. Then a hand burst out from the soil beside them. A human hand, dark, rotten. Then a face followed, eyes wide open, no eyelids, a dead face, but still breathing. Grace screamed and jumped back. The person crawled halfway out of the ground and growled in a hoarse, dry voice, "Return it or die with it." Mama Kemi began to chant a prayer, but the earth kept opening, slowly swallowing the tree roots, shaking beneath their feet. Grace held the pot tightly to her chest. She didn't know what to do. Run, drop it, beg. Then she heard a soft voice in her head, her mother's voice. "You must fight for what is yours." Tears filled her eyes. She raised the clay pot, looked at the rotting creature and screamed, "You didn't give me this. I was tricked. You can't stop me." Suddenly, a blast of wind knocked the thing back into the hole. The ground stopped shaking. Silence, complete silence. Grace fell to the ground, crying and clutching the clay pot like her life depended on it. Because it did. Later that night, the prophetess laid the clay pot on a white cloth. She poured honey, salt, and fresh spring water around it. Then she cut 3 white chickens and poured their blood on the symbols. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Let what was stolen be made whole again." The pot began to hiss. It vibrated, then it cracked. Inside it was a small piece of womb-shaped wax, half melted, half preserved. It still had her name carved on it. Grace held her chest. She had found it, but the prophetess didn't smile. Instead, she looked at her and said, "This is only the beginning. As long as he still breathes, this womb cannot return to your body. Until he bleeds, you remain incomplete." The next morning, the sun rose slowly, silent and hot, like it knew something dangerous was about to happen. Grace stood outside the prophetess's compound, dressed in a plain brown wrapper, her face sharp and determined. In her bag was a small calabash holding the half-burnt wax womb. Her womb. She tightened the rope on her sandal and whispered to herself, "Today he will bleed." The prophetess had warned her again, "Once you face him, do not let him touch you. Do not eat, drink, or take anything from him. His words carry poison. His eyes carry death." But Grace had made up her mind. She was going to face Chief Anthony Okonkwo. And this time, she wasn't going alone. Before leaving, the prophetess gave Grace a small gourd filled with palm oil and tied with black thread. "If you pour this on the ground while he's standing there and call your name 3 times, his spiritual protection will break and the land will collect his blood." Grace hid the gourd carefully inside her wrapper. Then she nodded. "I understand." Back at Hilltop Estate, Chief Anthony was sitting in his living room, sipping hot bitter leaf juice and reading a newspaper. He wore a white kaftan with red beads and golden sandals. Suddenly, his guard walked in. "Sir, she's outside." He raised one eyebrow. "Who?" The guard stammered. "That girl." "Grace, she said she wants to see you." Anthony leaned back in his chair and smiled. "Let her in." The gate opened slowly. Grace stepped in. Every footstep felt heavy, like she was walking on blood. 2 guards escorted her to the front door. As the door opened, she saw him. Chief Anthony, the man who looked like a king but carried the heart of a demon. He smiled. "Grace, you look stronger than the last time I saw you." She didn't smile. She didn't sit. She just stood and said, "I know what you did. I saw where you buried it. I found it. And I came to collect what's mine." Anthony leaned forward, folding his hands calmly. "Your womb. Oh, so you found it. Good for you. But it's mine now." Grace's eyes burned with tears. "You're a monster." He stood up slowly, walked toward her and whispered, "You begged for help. I gave it. I didn't force you. What I took, I paid for." Grace stepped back and reached for her bag. "I don't need to argue with you. I just need your blood." Anthony laughed. "My blood? My dear, do you think I'm that easy to destroy?" Grace quickly untied the black gourd and threw it to the ground. Palm oil covered the tiles. Then she called her name. "Grace, Grace! Grace! Suddenly the air changed. The ground shook. A glass table shattered on its own. Anthony froze, his eyes wide. He tried to step back, but his legs were heavy like stone. He reached for his beads, but they broke off and scattered across the room. "What? What did you do?" he shouted. Grace stepped forward, eyes fierce. "Your protection is gone, and the ground is hungry." She brought out the broken wax womb and held it toward him. "Return what you took, or this land will drink your blood." In panic, Anthony rushed to a drawer and brought out a sharp blade. But before he could strike, lightning flashed outside, and the roof trembled. The floor beneath him cracked. He fell to his knees, coughing. Then blood began to drip from his nose. He looked up at Grace, terrified. "Please, stop this." But Grace didn't move. "Did you stop when I was bleeding, Maggots? Did you stop when I couldn't sleep for weeks? Did you stop when you buried my womb in the dark?" He dropped the knife, then did something no one expected. He began to cry. Real tears. I wanted power. I didn't know it would come back like this." Grace's hands were shaking. She had never seen a man like him cry, but still she wanted her womb back. She wanted to be whole. Suddenly, a voice echoed from behind her, the prophetess. She had entered quietly, unseen by the guards. She said calmly, "You have broken his shield. Now you must choose. Forgive him and let the gods handle it, or spill his blood and collect your womb through pain." Grace looked at Anthony, then at the red gourd of oil on the ground, then at the wax in her hand. Her heart was pounding, tears rolled down her cheeks. It was time to choose. The room was silent. Chief Anthony was on his knees, bleeding slightly from his nose, tears running down his face, shaking like a coward. The mighty man who once walked with gods was now begging like a slave. But Grace, she stood tall, her wrapper soaked with sweat, her fingers clutching the cracked womb-shaped wax tightly. The prophetess's voice echoed again. "Forgive him, and let the spirits handle it, or spill his blood, and take back your destiny by force." Grace slowly turned to the prophetess and whispered, "He did not forgive me when I begged for help. He paid for my womb with evil. Let me collect it with blood." The prophetess stepped forward and handed Grace a black razor knife. Its blade was small, sharp, and tied with red thread. "Don't kill him," she said calmly. "Just make him bleed. Let the blood fall on the earth. That's what the spirits demand." Grace walked to Anthony. He crawled back like a rat. "No, please. Grace, I'm sorry. I didn't know it would destroy you." She raised the blade. "You destroyed me the moment you made that sacrifice. Now it's time to take back what's mine." She knelt beside him, held his wrist, and cut a single line across his palm. Anthony screamed. Blood flowed, red, warm, fresh. Grace quickly collected it into a small bowl of white sand that the prophetess had placed before her. The moment the blood touched the sand, a strong wind blew through the room. Candles fell. The wax womb in her hand began to melt again, but this time it didn't melt into nothing. It melted into light. Golden, warm light. It lifted into the air like smoke and slowly entered Grace's stomach. Her eyes rolled back. She fell. Somewhere in the spirit realm, she found herself standing at the edge of a river, the same river from the beginning, the one that talks. From the water, a woman appeared, glowing. She looked like an older version of Grace. The woman smiled and said, "Daughter, your womb is yours again, but never give your body to a man whose soul you cannot see." Then she vanished. Grace fell backward and woke up. Back in the mansion, she opened her eyes slowly. The prophetess smiled. "You're whole," she whispered. "Your womb is back. The spirits have returned what was stolen." Grace touched her stomach gently for the first time in months. There was peace, no more pain, no more maggots, no more dreams of death. Chief Anthony sat quietly in the corner, face pale, weak, broken. Before leaving, the prophetess turned to Anthony and said, "The gods gave you time to return what you stole, but you refused. You are now a walking corpse. You will still eat, talk and sleep, but every day your bones will rot from inside until the spirits decide your death." Anthony didn't speak, he just covered his face in shame. Grace turned to him one last time and said, "May your power bury your peace." Then she walked out, never looking back. Days later, Grace returned to school. Her health came back. Her skin glowed. She walked like someone who had crossed fire and survived. Sandra moved out of the hostel out of shame. No one saw Chief Anthony again. Some say he left the country. Others say his mansion is empty, but at night you can hear someone crying inside. Grace didn't care. She had won, but the journey had taught her one thing. Some things are more expensive than money, like your womb, your soul, your destiny. And no matter what, never trade what is priceless for what will perish. 5 years later, the sun was setting gently over the hills of Inyugu. Children were laughing in the distance. Birds flew across the sky. Grace sat on a chair in front of her house, a peaceful, fine house, painted cream and surrounded by flowers. In her arms was a baby girl, giggling and playing with her scarf. Behind her, a young man stepped out, her husband. Kind, loving, quiet, a good man who waited patiently for her heart to heal and never asked about her past. They named their daughter Chikamso, as God has willed. Grace smiled as she watched her baby sleep. She touched her stomach gently. "This same womb that once carried maggots," she whispered, "now carries a future." She looked up at the sky and whispered again, "Thank you, God. Thank you, ancestors." Moral lessons from the story. Desperation can lead to destruction. Grace made a desperate choice and paid dearly for it. Not every helper is sent from God. Some are devils in disguise with smiling faces and wicked hearts. Spiritual matters are real. The physical world is only half of what exists. Always be prayerful and watchful. Your body is not for sale. No amount of money is worth your womb, your peace, or your soul. Forgiveness is strength, but justice is also powerful. Sometimes you need to fight back wisely. Evil will never go unpunished. No matter how powerful the wicked may look, their day will come. Dear viewers, let's talk. Drop your answers in the comment section. Do you think Grace made the right decision by spilling Chief Anthony's blood instead of forgiving him? What would you do if your best friend, like Sandra, betrayed you like that? Have you or someone you know ever met someone who seemed helpful, but later revealed their true colors? What lesson from this story touched you the most? Thank you for watching this emotional story. If it touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share.